Welcome, everybody. Today we have a very special guest.
I knew early on that I wanted to make movies.
It's such a difficult industry because there's a lot of luck involved.
I mean, look at American Werewolf in London, look at The Thing, look at The Fly. Look at these films that have really withstood the test of time.
I sculpted this Captain Kirk mask, and they didn't sell particularly well, but then John Carpenter came in, said, can you paint one white and spray paint his hair black?
I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it scared the living shit out of me.
You're just racking up these people that you grew up watching. They're in your films. Is that surreal?
There were 35 directors there. If there had been a bomb dropped on that restaurant, never another good horror movie.
Benet's Bloody Bits.
Welcome to Triple B. My name is Jason Benet. 1982's Jekyll and Hyde Together Again. It's a film that I saw when I was 11 years old. Way too young. Somehow, my brothers and I, who were well under the age to go see this rated R film, we saw it in a theater. Not too far from our house. We must have convinced our mom while she goes shopping, can you buy us tickets for this film? And we got in and we saw it. And Mark Blankfield is the star. His experience goes back to Fridays, which was a skit television show, kind of in the vein of Saturday Night Live. He worked with Larry David and Michael Richards from Seinfeld. So he kind of had his roots based in, surrounded by these great comedic talents. But it's Mark who is the star of this film, which is the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by way of crazy early 80s just wackiness. So the Dr. Jekyll part of him is serious, believes in medicine, wants to find an alternative to surgery by way of drugs. There is a wing of the hospital which is very dark. The hospital is Our Lady of Pain and Suffering. So that alone, which is outside of the building, you get what kind of film this is going to be. It's a high camp. There is a wing of the hospital that has really ill people, but it's so over the top. It's like really dark, almost like a haunted house. There's cobwebs. There's a spider. And there's also people that are really sick, and one of them is like the lady's in extreme pain, and can you help me, doctor? And he kind of wiggles from underneath her something, and you're like, what is he doing? Is he trying to crack her back? Come to find out, it's just a bedpan that hasn't been removed. That should have been done by one of the nurses. He goes up to another gentleman. He's like, fucking Blue Cross, because obviously insurance doesn't cover you as much as you would like. So it's actually really digging into the healthcare system, and it's hilarious. In real life, he is dating a nice woman, but she's kind of snooty, was looking for somebody with money, and Dr. Jekyll is just doesn't have a sexual appetite. He's not really into, doing things in the bedroom that she kind of would prefer. But one night he's working really late. He creates some white sparkling powder. Think white lines. It's obviously cocaine to help with the different version of surgery by way of drugs. He falls asleep. There's a straw near his nose. There's some white powder not far from it. As he's kind of breathing in, falling asleep, the straw ends up in his nose. The straw finds its way to the white powder, finds its way up his nose into his brain, and he just turns into this crazy, wild hair, silver tooth, one long fingernail to help him pick up some powder when he needs to, hairy chest, necklace, gold chains, necklaces. He looks like basically a pimp. And he becomes Mr. Hyde, who is sex crazy, loves women, looking for a good time. He finds that good time in a patient who ends up at the hospital, and this is so wrong. She's kind of a horny girl, a little bit loose, and she's got a foreign object, quote unquote, stuck in her, and that turns out to be an Asian guy. Foreign object, haha, get it? I mean, this movie is absolutely a different era, different time, politically incorrect. This would not fly in 2025, but this was, back then, you have to remember, that's when stand-up comedians and movies made fun of everybody, every nationality, every race, sexuality. It just kind of everything was off limits back then. Now you wouldn't be able to make this kind of film. But anyways, this girl kind of takes care of his cravings for sex, for having fun, for partying, doing way too much, very excessive, hedonistic kind of person. So there's a patient in the hospital who's basically like Howard Hughes. He's long-haired, he's crazy looking, he needs organs, but not just internal organs. He needs genitals too. Or as he says it, I need balls. And the director of the hospital is trying to get Dr. Jekyll to do it, but he's kind of going back and forth between these two personalities and he can't control it. Eventually Dr. Jekyll, he sits down to do the surgery, but he can't get it together. He's all over the place, and somebody else ends up doing it instead. And by the end of the film, he does get an award for being Dr. Jekyll, and he has to fly to London, England. But he does it on top of a plane. So this is just the craziness of this kind of movie. Everything, throw out the kitchen sink. They're going to throw everything into this film. He literally flies the friendly skies on top of the plane. He makes it there. His two loves of his life follow him there. They both want him, the nice girl, the more naughty girl. And he ends up on stage, but he gets the award as Mr. Hyde. And he looks crazy and he's spouting out nonsense and he does a musical number. Hyde's Got Nothing to Hide. That song and that jingle will stick in your brain forever, but it's a good thing. It's quite hilarious, and that's the beauty of this film. It's all Mark Blankfield's show. He is the movie from beginning to end. He, kind of like John Ritter or even Michael Richards, who he worked with on Fridays, he has that physical humor on top of his timing. So he can throw himself into a role. He can thrash around and really like let loose. And he's the star. And unfortunately, this movie didn't make him a star. It wasn't a box office hit when it came out in 1982. People were more focused on Blade Runner and E.T. I'm probably one of like 100 people that saw it in the theater. I think that box office analytics and statistics are very overrated. I think they only suit the studios unless you're like a big time actor that sees residuals. I guess it could help you get the next role, but it doesn't really put money in your pocket. Mark Blankfield is also co-stars with some great actors, some that I forgot that were even in it. There's Elvira Cassandra Peterson, Tim Thomerson, Lynn Shay, and George Wendt. So this is a heavy duty cast of legends. And this film deserves to be re-released. It was on Blu-ray. I want to say it's out of print. It is through Paramount Pictures. Vinegar Syndrome has a license with them. I wouldn't be surprised that we get this movie minimum on Blu-ray, but I'm thinking VSU, which is their 4K UHD line. I've never bought it as much as I love it. I've kind of always waited because I feel like there's that ultimate edition down the line, and I could see a Vinegar Syndrome 4K UHD being it. Mark Blankfield would go on to star in a TV sequel to the Steve Martin comedy, The Jerk, called The Jerk 2, TOO. I want to say I saw it years ago. I don't remember it being particularly good, but Mark Blankfield is the lead. Mark would go on to star in The Midnight Hour, which is a classic Halloween film that hasn't been available on physical media in years. Anchor Bay, long time ago, early 2000s, put it on DVD. And this is when the head honcho over there, William Lustig, had an in with Disney. So he acquired Midnight Hour, The Black Hole, Something Wicked This Way Comes. So all these films that now they're kind of hard to find but back then you were able to buy them. And I worked at Suncoast Video at the time, and we had an Anchor Bay end cap, and it had these films. Something Wicked This Way Comes, and The Black Hole, and The Midnight Hour. And I really wish I would have picked up The Midnight Hour on DVD. I have no problem with the DVD. Physical media ownership is what it is. So The Midnight Hour is definitely a fun mid-'80s kind of callback to different type of horror films. There's even a musical number because this was a couple years after Michael Jackson's Thriller, so they were obviously inspired to have a musical number. Eventually, Mark would star in Frankenstein General Hospital, which is not related to Jekyll and Hyde Together Again, but it's kind of like an in-spirit companion piece. And you can definitely watch them back to back. I was able to watch it on Tubi. I don't know if it's still available there. Mark would also go on to star in 2 Mel Brooks productions, Robin Hood Men in Tights and Dracula Dead and Loving It. But it's Jekyll and Hyde Together Again. That's the one that should have made him a superstar. Along, when you think of comedy legends like John Candy and Harold Ramis and Bill Murray, Mark Blankfield deserved that. I did reach out to him many years ago on social media about doing actually a retrospective on Jekyll and Hyde Together Again. And we talked a little bit and went back and forth. I don't think he was really interested. He had moved on with his life. I want to say he was a teacher, an educator at a college or university. So he kind of put those years in his rearview mirror. I did look up IMDb as a refresher before I started this video. And according to IMDb and Wikipedia, which are not always 100% correct, let me get that out of the way. Mark Blankfield passed away March of 2024, so almost a year ago. But when I do a Google search, there's no trades, there's no LA Times, New York Times, websites. They usually report that, but it's possible they just didn't give a crap. And who's Mark Blankfield? I don't know. So I can't 100% guarantee that he's no longer with us. But according to the reporting, he did pass away a year ago. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I mean, we would need somebody that's a family or friend to really know for certain. But either way, Mark Blankfield, this role is legendary. The comedy is so good. There's just so many fun lines. I mean, I've watched the film maybe 2 or 3 times in the last 25 years, but I could still remember lines and sayings, and Hyde's got nothing to hide, and get the things that he does and says, and I need balls from, even the smaller character actors or people that we don't know who they are hilarious. It really is like a Seinfeld 90-minute episode, right? If it was R-rated. Everybody's good from top to bottom, whether you recognize the actor or it's somebody you have no idea who they are. I can't recommend this film enough. It's a classic, a masterclass by Mark Blankfield. The comedy here is so good. One day, I'd love to own it. I think it is going to come eventually from Vinegar Syndrome. I was able to watch it for $5 on Amazon Prime. It's totally worth it. I definitely check it out, guys. It's a good time. It means something to me. I'm glad I'm one of the few people that could say they saw this film in the theaters. Mark Blankfield, wherever you are, or if you're still with us, thank you for the laughs. The movie is a hoot. It's aged like fine wine. But thank you guys for listening. I appreciate your time. Have a great laugh and check out this movie, and I'll see you soon.